wonder would it do me any good? But until I get some money in my pocket, then I guess just have to walk around my neighborhood. And I wanna be good so bad. I wanna be so good, so bad, so bad. I wanna be good so bad. But bad desire's all I've ever had. I wanna take a ride up in the sky, watch the aeroplanes just pass me by. I wanna see a Learjet liner take a dive, just to show all of these people what it means to be alive. And I wanna be good so bad. I wanna be so good, so bad, so bad. I wanna be good so bad. But bad desire's all I've ever had.
Hey guys, I'm so used to saying my name is Amy and I'm an alcoholic, so I'm just going to say my name is Amy and I'm an alcoholic. And I like to also say there weren't many drugs that I didn't like, so that is definitely part of my whole situation. I am the youngest of three. I grew up in northern New Jersey in a little town called Butler, and Butler was cool. Butler was like filled with like working class people. All my friends were like cool. I never had that weird feeling like some people were really, had a lot of money. Some people didn't have a lot of money. There was that, but there was never any like pressure to feel or be some kind of way with regard to that, which was nice because I noticed that a lot more in like society, I guess now. I don't know. But so I was the youngest of three, like I said. My parents got divorced when I was like, they split up when I was probably around 7, I guess. I don't remember. They didn't get divorced for many years, but they weren't together. And so my mom raised us, and she had to go back to work, and she did. And she also went to college while we were little. And so she was she is still an inspiration to me. She's just an amazing person, woman, role model, all of those things. And so being the youngest of three, my older brother and sister are 5 and 6 years older than me. So I was quite a bit younger than them. And our house was like, let's hang out and party at the Hopler's house. And so, because my mom was at work or at school or whatever. So there was a lot of hanging out and partying at our house. And I loved it. I loved the attention of the older kids, my brother and sister's friends. I loved the parties. I loved everybody around. I just loved the whole thing. I loved music. We had, of course, it was the 70s and 80s. So there was like records. We had a lot of records, and we just had a lot of fun. And I always had a blast. And I didn't really drink or anything with them until I was probably about the ripe old age of, 12. But I do remember once when I was little, I was probably around, it was before my parents split up. So I'm going to say I was around 6. And my parents were wacko hippies, like bad. We didn't have anything sweet in our house. We didn't have, the most we had was like potato chips, I remember, and I think vanilla ice cream, but they were like my dad. So you didn't fuck with that unless they were doling it out. But we ate like stir-fried vegetables, and now I think it's cool, but then it was horrible. All I wanted was like pizza and pizza rolls and normal shit that other kids were eating, and like we didn't have that. We didn't even have milk in the house. We had to eat our cereal like puffed millet, which is like bird seed, basically. It's puffed bird seed with like natural apple juice, the kind with all the shit floating around in it before it was cool. So it was kind of embarrassing. And anyway, so my sister and I woke up really early on like a Saturday morning or something. And on top of the refrigerator, we found this whole giant tray of brownies. And so we were psyched because they were fucking brownies and we never had sweet shit. So we ate them all. And little did I know, or did we know, that they were brownies that my dad had made to go to a party that night. And so they were, they were pot brownies. Like, it was, again, it was dirt weed, but it did the trick. And so I remember just like being really lazy and kind of like, just wanted to like watch cartoons and eat shit. And my mom woke up and like freaked the fuck out. Like my mother, I think that was the beginning of the end, to be honest, of their marriage, because my mom like lost her shit. She was so pissed that my father had made them. We had eaten them. Her kids are stoned. My sister had to go to like a cheerleading exhibition thing. She couldn't make it because she was high. And my mom gave us that syrup that makes you throw up. And she made us like, it was winter time. And I remember her making us like run around outside. And we were like, oh, like, it was just horrible. All we wanted to do was like laugh and like watch cartoons. But so that's a couple of years later, which was only really a couple of years later, probably like 5 years later, when I first smoked weed for the first time, I was like, oh, I remember this feeling, and it was like that feeling of like warm comfort. I didn't really like weed, however, like it wasn't my thing. I would get really paranoid. My heart would like beat out of my chest. It doesn't matter. All throughout, I would still smoke it. Like, don't think they would deter me, but it just wasn't my thing. Drinking, however, was my thing. And started drinking when I was like 12. And it was easy because it was like steal it from your parents and their friends, our friends' liquor cabinets. I mean, my one friend and I, when her mom would like go out to the grocery store, we were like 12, 13. Her mom would leave for the grocery store, which was like not that far away. We would bust out all those little tiny juice glasses and make like miniature cocktails and just down them one after the other. And we would be fucked up, like watching movies. We watched what like 12-year-olds like watch the Blues Brothers. That was our favorite movie. We watched the Blues Brothers over and over and over. It was hilarious, but we were trash too. But it still is a really fun movie. I love that movie. Anyway, so that's kind of how things got started. I do remember as a kid, I remember feeling like I was like in school and stuff. I remember feeling like I wanted to be the center of attention, but I didn't want to be the center of attention. I always thought people were like looking at me or seeing what I was doing, or, it was like completely self-centered. Nobody's looking at me. Nobody gave a shit what I was doing. But I always had that feeling like I was like on some kind of stage or like had to put on some kind of act. Like I always had that feeling. And it was like uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable, but I was able to cover it up. And I was able to use my outgoingness and my like gregariousness to cover that up. So instead of like retreating, I went the other way. But there's a part in the big book, or I think it's in the big book. It says something about like you're either on top of the mountain or hiding underneath a heap of whatever. And that's exactly how I felt daily. Anyway, so drinking just continued always through my early teens, through high school. I did end up going to college, and I really had no reason to go to college. Like I didn't have a passion. I didn't have anything I was really like wanting to be when I grew up. I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. I had this feeling really up until I got sober that things would just happen. It never occurred to me that I had to work toward a goal. Like never occurred to me. I figured that things would just happen because things would just happen to me and I would kind of go with the flow. I'm Sagittarius. It's kind of how we can be. And I was like, oh, okay, this is happening. Like, let's go with this flow. And I was a pretty good student. I mean, my grades are funny because they're either like A's or like low C's. Like I only failed a couple of things in younger grades, but I was either like really good or like not good at all. And so anyway, I ended up going to college, and how I picked I was just psyched that I could be away from home. Not that it was horrible, but I could drink and party the way I wanted to. I just wanted a party. I just wanted my life to be a party. I wanted everything to be fun. Don't bring me down with like real life bullshit. Like I had no idea what real life bullshit even was, even though I watched my mom like struggle, go to school, work, take care of us, stress out over my brother and sister being like maniacs, like all of that. Like, but it just like, I just wanted fun. And so college was fun. I don't know that I went to any classes or many classes. I think I wrote a couple of papers. I did end up the second semester of my first year in college, I had a car and I ended up crashing my car and I was drunk and I went around this curve. It was winter. All I remember is I woke up when my face hit like snow. So I was pushed out of the car and the cops came. Well, first I tried to put it in reverse because I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. Like I just crashed this car. And I put the car in reverse and like the gear shifter thing just slid back and forth. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, now what am I gonna do? And so the cops came and they said to me, who says this? They said, we can either take you down to the police station or we can take you to a diner and you can call someone. No brainer. I went to the diner and I called my sister and she came and got me. And she was way more upset about this than I was. I was just like, let's just get me the fuck out of here. Like figure out what we need to do with this car. Like, I don't even remember like what I told my mom. I don't remember any of that. I just remember needing to get the fuck out of there. And my sister kind of saved me from that. I knew I was like bruised up and I wasn't that shaken up by it. Like, I think I was, but I just was, again, like covering it up with like, oh, it's fine. Like, no big deal. Like, let's just keep on going with life, you know? And so after that, I had to drop out of college. That one, it was Seton Hall University in South Orange, New Jersey. And so I had to move back home. And my mother told me I had to get a job and I had to, if I wanted to go to school, I had to pay for my own school. And so I did. I got a job at this like supermarket, gourmet supermarket, and I had to take buses to get there. And I went to college, but I paid for it myself. And we made a deal that for every A I got, she would reimburse me for the cost of that. So it actually worked out pretty well. The unfortunate thing, or fortunate for me thing, was that it took me forever to graduate from college because I could only take a couple classes at a time because I couldn't afford to pay for it like that. But it was the 90s. And so the 90s were great. Oh my God, I had so much fun. It was like one big long weekend. It was so great. Worked at this place. I worked with a whole bunch of like younger people and we all just hung out. It was like our version of like a college dorm. We had so much fun. We went to the city all the time, New York, that is. We saw millions of bands. My boyfriend at the time was a drummer in a band. And they played all over the place. They played at CBGB's. They played at this place called Coney Island High, and they played all over the place, and Manitoba's. And it was a shit ton of fun. It was so much fun. And all we did was party and drink. And I think everybody else was doing a bunch of drugs, but I wasn't really doing that many drugs with that crowd. It was around then, though, with another crowd that I was doing, like, I would do acid and we were doing mushrooms. Oh, mushrooms. Mushrooms are just great. They were just so much fun. I remember taking mushrooms. My friend Steven made it into a tea and we drank this shitty ass tasting tea. That was wonderful. And we went to the Halloween parade in Greenwich Village, which was like, used to be, I don't know if it still even happens, but it was like a freak show and it was amazing. And they had these like giant, there was like one of those like Chinese dragon things that's held by people, you know, and that went like whizzing by and it was like, whoa, what the fuck is this? And then I love skeletons, and they had big giant skeletons that people were like on the sticks, and people were like operating it. So the skeleton was like moving all over, and it was amazing. That was so much fun. So then that's what I did in the 90s. I partied and drank. I went to a lot of Grateful Dead shows. I went to a lot of weird, random hardcore shows in the woods of like New York State, because my boyfriend was into, he was like a hardcore guy. And so we went to a lot of those. So I was like, went to a lot of punk shows. So it was like this punk rock hippie chick. I have pictures of myself holding like giant balloons, ice cold fatties, with like some kind of like fucked up hippie dress on, but like in the background is like all these metalheads and all this like all these like punk rock dudes with like big spiky necklaces, and it was a blast. It was so much fun. I loved it. Woodstock, went to that second one there, went to the other one too that was a little shady. But always drove home, drove around New York City drunk. One time we took acid and we were going to the Bronx to get weed, and it was right off Jerome Avenue and right by Yankee Stadium. And I drove across the George Washington Bridge. And for some reason, seemed like a good idea at the time, we each took some acid, and next thing you know, we were like in Queens driving around. We were just trying to get back to New Jersey, but like we took the long way, and we were in Brooklyn. We were all over the place. We were finally made it through Brooklyn to Canal Street, driving through Manhattan, get back to New Jersey, and like the sun was coming up, and I had to go straight to work. I was just telling these guys before that I have to work at 6:30 tomorrow morning. And the worst thing that happens now is that I go to work tired. I don't go to work tripping on acid anymore. So it's all a win at this point. That was a good night, I think. I don't really remember. I just remember smoking cigarettes. And I was always driving and bugging out and laughing. So let's see. Things started to change around 2000, because I noticed what was happening was friends of mine were like getting married and, having families and slowing down and getting real jobs and doing stuff that adults would do. And I was close to 30 and I was like nowhere near an adult. I finally did graduate from college with a degree in biology. Like, what the fuck am I going to do with that? So I decided that I wanted to become a teacher. And I had this gig where I was a permanent substitute for like a year. This woman went out on maternity leave. So I got to teach high school biology, which was like fucking awesome. It was sophomores. So it was human bio, love human bio. And I realized that it's really hard to teach when you're hungover. It's really hard to teach when you're obsessed with the end of the day, so that you can go and drink. It's also really hard to plan things like lesson plans and all that kind of stuff. Like I just wanted to, again, have fun. Like that's all I wanted to do with these kids was make them love science the way I did. And I wasn't doing a very good job at it. I didn't end up getting a permanent position, which, I wonder why, but I just moved on. I decided to go get a job at Verizon Wireless, and I was a customer service rep for Verizon Wireless, and we sat in a call center, and I was the person that you called when something was wrong with your phone. And so it was before nowadays. It was like 2001, excuse me. And I mean, I had calls from like a lady, but all the calls came from Philly too, into our call center. So it was like all these people from Philly calling with like fucked up issues with their phones. And this one lady called and she kept telling me that her wireless phone wasn't working. And when she got on the bus, it would stop working, and on and on and on and on and on. Well, it turns out it wasn't her wireless phone. It was her fucking cordless phone. Like this lady was calling in to tell me her cordless phone wasn't working on the, southbound bus going to downtown Philly. And I was like, of course it's not working, lady. It's a cordless phone. But that was the kind of shit that people would call with. Luckily for me, the girl that sat next to me was completely addicted to all sorts of pills. And so when we would go to work, she would hand me, I don't even know what, like it was all painkillers at the time. And it was like right around the whole Oxycontin thing. I don't know the difference between Oxy 80s, Roxy 30, like I don't know what the difference is. I know that whatever she gave me and I would bite it in half was not a good idea because it was time released. And so it would like, I would just chew them. I was like such a wimp. I know. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to say that to you guys who are so seasoned, but I didn't know you could snort them. Otherwise I probably would have. But anyway, yeah. So I did a lot of my customer service work pretty fucked up. I'm surprised I didn't like laugh at people I did hang up on a couple people. I know that. And one person, I think when they finally called me a cunt, I just was like, you know what? I can't do this job anymore. And so I quit and I got kind of recruited to work for Singular Wireless. They were coming into the New York area. They'd never been in New York before, and they were opening up a bunch of stores, and they wanted to like staff the stores and blah, blah, blah. So I got this job working as a salesperson for them. And we didn't have a lot of business where I was. It was a store in New Jersey, and we would just sit around and literally be on the internet all day long. And this one kid I worked with was like, well, he like pushed his chair back from his desk and he was like, well, I've done it. And we were like, what'd you do? And he's like, I'm sure I looked at the whole internet. Like he read the whole thing because it was that slow. And I applied for another couple of jobs within the same company and ended up getting transferred into New York City, into their flagship location, which was on Fifth Avenue. And so my sister lived in the city at the time and she was traveling a lot. So I ended up taking over her apartment. And so it was after, this was probably like 2002, the beginning of 2002, because it was after 9/11, because I did not live in New York when 9/11 happened, but I still lived in New Jersey. But anyway, I lived in the city. I worked on Fifth Avenue. It was around then that I noticed clearly that I was drinking every day. And so I remember clear as day walking into a bodega and putting a 6-pack on the counter. Why was I only buying a 6-pack? Why was I buying beer even? What the fuck was wrong with me? Like that wasn't going to do shit. But, I was trying to fool myself into thinking like I was okay. So I put it on the counter and I heard a voice say, wow, you're drinking every day now. And I truly thought someone said that to me. Like I looked around and there was no one around. It was my own brain, I guess, that said it to myself. And I was just like, push that out of the way. I paid my money and that was that. And I was off. I had a different boyfriend at this time. I was living with him. I was so clueless. Like I had so self-centered, like zero compassion for him. He had, his sister had just committed suicide. His dad had just gone through like this whole thing with cancer, and his mom was like heartbroken and splitting up with his dad, and he was in a bad place, and I had I don't even think I ever asked him about how he was feeling or what was going on with him. Like I didn't care. Like all I knew was that he was going to pay half the rent and I was going to like be able to drink and party the way I wanted to and be able to live in New York and not have to mess up my life too much. I didn't want to, that was like a little messy. I didn't want to have to deal with that. And that's like so the opposite of the person I am now and the person that I kind of was when I was a little kid, and when I think about it now, it makes me sad and kind of sick to think about. That's how I behaved. And so anyway, because of all those things, he was into like, he was constantly had some kind of drug in the house. We had a lot of ecstasy around, which I loved that too. Loved it. And lots of powdered cocaine. We had this guy JP from the Bronx, and you would just call him up and he would deliver it, like sometimes 3-4 times in a night, which was like, again, I feel so bad about that, but I mean, he's a drug dealer, he didn't care. So that's what started really like the serious downfall. Like I was on a slow decline, but like that started really taking me down. And I started not having enough money to support my habits. I started being really, really not a very good worker. I did work at that flagship store for a while. There was an opening for a store manager at one of the stores in Manhattan, and I got that job. And so now I had access to all of these cell phones and all of this like cash. And so that part, there's a lot of stuff I don't remember because I was just so fucked up. And it was around then too that I realized that, when I wake up in the middle of the night, kind of jittery and shaky, if I just have a drink, it'll calm it right back down. I could sleep for a little while longer and then wake up and continue. And so that's how I started really middle of the night, morning-ish drinking. And, and then if I was too fucked up, you just do a couple lines and then you balance it all out. Like, God forbid you just don't do anything to stay balanced. It was like I was either full tilt, I had to drink myself off the ledge, or vice versa. Like I'm too fucking drunk, so let me do a couple lines. So it was always that like game of trying to get my heart rate right, really. And so I ended up at that store whenever I was the manager, playing a little game with the money at that store. And what I did was I would borrow the money out of the deposit and call JP or call whomever and get my shit. And then the next day when I did the deposit, I would take whatever I borrowed from that, put it into the day before and deposit that in the bank. This got very confusing after a while. And so I would there's a couple of things. I'm pretty sure I didn't even deposit anything. I really don't know. And what ended up happening is they audited my store. And and I would also transfer phones out of my inventory and then go and sell them on Craigslist. Before Craigslist was like really fucking weird, you could actually go on Craigslist and like meet people on a corner and exchange the goods for money or whatever. And it wasn't like you weren't going to, get murdered or raped or whatever. It was pretty normal back then. So I did that with a place in Brooklyn, I think it was. And I was so delusional and so used to lying that I had kind of convinced myself that like this was okay. I never really considered whether it was okay or it wasn't okay. Like it was okay because it was serving my needs. And I did that for a while. And again, then there was that weird money thing I was doing. Like it was way too much for like an alcoholic cokehead to deal with. And so they audited my store. They found out that there was like $13,000 worth of merchandise and cash missing. And what I did was instead of facing anything, instead of I just quit. I quit before they could fire me. And so I thought, oh, that's good. I quit. Done, What I did then was, here's where I fucked up. I went back to that store like a month later, and a friend of mine was the manager of that store then. And I went into the inventory room because I was going to the bathroom in the back, and I turned off the cameras and I put a bunch of phones in this big bag that I had. And I, went back out, and then I left. And a couple of days later, I got a phone call from loss prevention, and they had a backup camera in the inventory room. So I was caught, I was busted. And so I did what I thought I could. I did I gave the phones back. I just mailed them back, and I thought I wasn't going to get in any trouble, forgetting that I had been in trouble for basically stealing all that other shit the last time, when I got audited. So what happened was I got arrested, and actually, no, I made an appointment with a detective, and turns out if you don't keep an appointment with a detective, they come and find you, and that's what happened. I had gotten a new job, and I didn't show up to the appointment, and it was like a Friday night, and somebody knocked on our apartment door, and it was not a doorman apartment, it was a walk-up, but you still had to buzz someone in the front door. So they got in the front door, and they were at our apartment door. And meanwhile, behind where we were, there was I like to say it was a Scarface pile of cocaine. It wasn't that big, but it was Friday night. We were getting ready to party. There was bottles of vodka. There was a big pile of Coke. There was, whatever, a bunch of Xanax probably to come down. Who the hell knows? And the cops are, I looked through the people, and all I saw was a badge. And I was like, oh, fuck, shit. I'd never gotten in trouble like that before. And so I went out in the hallway, and I was talking to them. Bless their hearts, they were so nice. They were told me what, they were going to arrest me. They told me what to take, what not to take, what to bring to jail. I didn't know. So he's like, bring your ID, bring a couple quarters, that's all you can bring. And so I go with them, and the backseat of a cop car is really small. I found out that handcuffs hurt. And I was cramped in the back there, and they drove me wherever their precinct was in relation to my apartment, and made me write down what happened. And here I was being Johnny honest at this point. So I wrote down what happened, and I was honest, I told them what was up. And I thought that was it. Again, I was really dumb when it came to a lot of shit. And so naive, not dumb. So I thought they were just going to let me go. Meanwhile, I had been doing lines, drinking, my heart's racing out of my chest. And thankfully they let me smoke a couple cigarettes, which was really nice. And they took me downtown, and I had to get in the car again, go down to this shithole place, and spend the weekend in jail. And I was in there with people that I thought, I was like, I don't belong here. I wasn't snotty about it, but in my head, I was like, oh, I don't belong in here. I'm like, please, this is crazy. And I'm sitting in there, and I'm like, oh, this place, it was awful. It was awful. And so, mats on the floor, dark. I just remember it being dark. And as the night wore on, more and more people came in, and more and more I was like, oh no, it's some girl beat up her boyfriend. These other two chicks got into a fight here. I don't even know what they were doing. And I could tell as the night went on, my go-to is to try to make people laugh, because I always think they're going to beat me up. For some reason, I just get this idea that I'm going to get beat up. And I've never gotten into a fight in my life with a girl. And so I was just trying to make these chicks laugh, and it was working. And that was also the first time I ever saw somebody nod out on, I never saw that before. And I was amazed. This girl was sitting in a chair, and her head was on the floor, but her ass was still in the chair. And I was like, that's fucking amazing. Wow, totally blown away by that. And then it dawned on me, I was like, oh, I guess that's what that is. And so finally they asked me what I had done. And I told them that I had stolen all this shit. And they were like, oh, all right. I got a little street cred, I was feeling good. And then my dumb ass told them that I gave the stuff back. And they were just like, what the fuck? That's when I probably would have got my ass kicked. But I just thought I was being a good girl. And so anyway, it ended up being okay. When I got out, I remember it being a snowstorm. I had to convince a cab driver to drive me back to my apartment, and I'd pay him when I got there. And I did. And I just know that I stripped in the hallway because I felt like I just stunk, and I had to get in the shower and go to work. So again, at least I'm not getting out of jail. If this meeting goes till 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, at least I'm not drunk, I'm not high, I'm not tripping on acid, and I'm not straight out of jail. So it's good. Anyway, that was my little weekend in jail. I ended up getting, by that time, I was so bad. every day go to work and every day tell myself I wasn't going to drink. And I would, by lunchtime, I was going to buy one of those bottles of vodka and I would drink it with a kiwi strawberry Snapple. And I still, to this day, like that smell of that shit just makes me sick. And that's what I did. And I couldn't not drink. And I think that, really by that point too, I couldn't afford to do any drugs. It was a real shit show at my house, at my apartment. Like my boyfriend was just not, he didn't think this was charming at all. My mother didn't think I was cute at all either. She had pretty much changed the locks on her house and was like, yeah, no. Meanwhile, always telling me I had a problem and should get some help. My brother and sister-in-law told me that I wasn't really going to be allowed at their house anymore either. I had two small nephews that I was going to miss, but oh well. At that point I was like, well, I can't go there. Like it never dawned on me to just try to quit. Like it wasn't an option. I needed to keep doing what I needed to do. And so I just continued. And I ended up getting 10 days of community service for my crime. And by that time, I'm such a goody in a certain way, because my community service was to clean up the parks around Manhattan. And I went in there gung ho, it's fucking community service. You're not getting paid. You're not getting a gold star, but here's Amy, okay, sweeping and really trying to do a good job. I wanted to do a good job. Oh my God, I make myself laugh. I'm such an idiot. But I did. I did end up only completing 5 of 10 days. I thought that was enough. I'm like, it's fine. 5 is good. It's half. Or maybe it was 6. It might have been 6. I think it was 6. Yeah, I did 6. And then I just couldn't show up anymore. I was like, oh, it's getting in the way. I couldn't go to work. So I just stopped going to work. My thing too with for a while I was substitute teaching, and I would do this thing where I just wouldn't answer the phone when they called. And so in my mind, they wanted me to work, but in my mind, it was I didn't have to work that day because I just didn't answer the phone. The things I convinced myself of that were legit were just not legit. So ridiculous. I stole my boyfriend's credit card to buy alcohol. I sold all of my, I know I'm old. I sold all of my CDs, all of my music was gone. I only have 8 or 9 left. They're right over there. I sold it to a record store to get money for alcohol. I know, I'm a loser, not even drugs. But anyway, I sold jewelry. I sold shit to get what I needed to get, and I remember around that time too, really considering what I would need to do to stop. Every day I would say to myself, okay, this is it. This is it. You've had enough of this. It didn't have anything to do with wanting my life to be better. I just wanted the crazy to stop. I just wanted the craziness to stop. And so I would look at myself in the mirror, and I could clearly see myself in this mirror in my apartment in New York. And I would look at myself in the mirror and I would say all right, you've got this. You're not going to drink today. This is going to be fine. You're going to do it. You've got this, and I would be psyching myself up. And then immediately I would it had been a few hours, and so I would start getting that feeling in the pit of my stomach. I would get real antsy. I couldn't really take a good deep breath because my chest was tight. My eyes were so bloodshot. I was so puffy. I was so puffy. But I would start to really, really, really need a drink, and I would try to brush my teeth, but it would make me throw up because, and I would just cough and throw up, and I would, my heart rate started going, I could feel my blood pressure rising. And I would say to myself, well, what would really help to quit drinking? If I just could have just just take the edge off, just have a couple drinks, and then I could get about the business of quitting drinking. And so every day I would do that. And every day I would have a couple drinks in order to quit drinking. And of course, I would overshoot the mark. And of course, I would pass out, come to 5 o'clock was the weirdest time ever. I love when people talk about that because it really was so confusing. Like certain times of the year, 5 o'clock is like 5 a.m., 5 p.m. I don't know. I think I told the story about being drunk and going out the wrong door of my apartment. I think I wrote it into Dave on Dopey to tell him that one, and how I was naked. I must have been drinking tequila because I was naked, and I accidentally went out the wrong door. I went to go to the bathroom and I went out the front door, and the door locked behind me, and I was naked in my hallway, and it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. And instead of just knocking on the door and asking my boyfriend to open the door, I knew he would be so pissed off that I just didn't want to deal with that. I thought what I was going to do was like go down the stairs, climb up the fire escape, and then in through the bathroom window, and then I would be good. And so I went out the back, and like the fire escape was really high, and I got a little nervous about that. And so I looked around, and all the trash cans were out, in the back alley, and they had just gotten new trash bags in them, so there was no garbage in any of them. And I was like, so I pulled out one of the bags and I ripped a hole in the top of it and ripped some armholes and made myself a little garbage bag dress. And then I went out into the front of the apartment. And by this time it was like, like 5:30, and people were starting to walk by, and I bummed a cigarette and I sat on my front porch and smoked a cigarette in my trash bag outfit. And then I guess I got it up to enough nerve to go back upstairs and knock on the door and ask my boyfriend to let me in. So, and he did. And after that, every single time we went out, he was like, do you have anything to wear? There's a new box of trash bags underneath the sink if you need something, which I thought he was an asshole at the time, but now it's pretty goddamn funny. But I did dumb shit like that. I just did dumb stuff. And instead of taking the easy way, I tried to go around the mountain to get quicker answer. I don't know what I was doing. I was a mess. I brought myself so much. I brought I did some dangerous shit. There's this bar on the Lower East Side, not far from Katz's actually. And we would go there, and I went there by myself one night. And we would go there, and we used to just take ecstasy and go there and listen to this chick spin records. And went by myself. I think I did take some ecstasy. And there was this guy who was always there. His name was Amir. And, I was drinking, and I was talking to Amir, and went up into like the DJ booth and like did a line of something, which I assumed was Coke when he was giving me this line, but I don't think it was, because I did it. And as soon as I stood up, I was like, that was not, like, my brain was like, that was not Coke. And it just like was out. And I woke up like hours later, still in the DJ booth. My clothes were all on, thank God. But like the people were cleaning the bar. Like there was this whole group of like some kind of Hispanic cultured people cleaning the bar. Nobody was speaking English. Nobody that like worked there, none of the bartenders were there. It was dead closed. And I was like, holy shit, like get me the fuck out of here. And I left, and I walked all the way back to where I lived, which was far. I lived on 53rd and 9th. And this was like all the way on the way other side of town, like miles and miles and miles. And I walked because I was like freaked the fuck out. Like what the hell could have happened to me? And that was pretty normal, like I would wake up in apartments of people. I would find myself, it was just terrible and dangerous and terrible. And I'm glad I never got sex trafficked. I mean, it's just terrible. When I think about it now, I'm like, oh my God. I work with a bunch of teenage girls, and man, I don't have kids of my own, but these girls are like my kids, you know, and I'm like, oh my God, they tell me shit. And I'm like, please, please, please. I try to tell them like stuff that I've done, like, you know, mildly. I don't want to freak them out totally, but I'm like, oh my God, you guys, they're so good though. They like don't leave parties without each other, and they do all this like they're so well trained. I'm proud of them, but God, some of them I'm like, oh boy, saving you a seat. So anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, completing 6 days of community service. That's right. So there was a period of time when I was during the 90s when I worked at this chiropractor's office in the city, and I met this guy who was a patient, and he was a friend of the chiropractor, and I was too, and so I knew this guy for a really long time. And so when I was really at the bottom, at the end, I was just in hell, and I think the worst place you could be is like still drinking or using and knowing that there's a better way, but either being like, I was like too tired to do it, or like just like want to get sober. Like it just seemed like an overwhelming task and an overwhelming amount of work. And I was like, why can't there just be? It was just overwhelming. I think that's probably one of the worst places to be. And so anyway, this guy came to visit, and I knew he was a drinker and stuff, and he had a friend who lived like somewhere down where I live now, which is like the eastern shore of Maryland. And he had a friend who had a house down here. And so he was like, why don't you come down? Come down, we'll hang out there. You can, you know, feel better. Nothing's connecting you here. Just like come with me. And so I was like, all right. And so I came for I was like, I'll go for the weekend. So we left Midtown Manhattan, and we start driving south, and drive through the whole state of New Jersey. We drive over into like where Delaware is, and we get on this road, and it's fucking dark, and I'm like, where the hell are we going? And I mean, the town I grew up in is like a small town, so I get it, but like, where the fuck are we going? And it's just getting darker. And we're driving, and we're driving, and we're driving, and we're driving. I'm like, oh my God, where the hell are we going? And there's all this shit on like the side of the roads as we're driving. And they told me it was corn. And I was like, what the fuck am I? Like I didn't grow up around any cornfields. And so we finally get to this little town called Rock Hall. And nothing's happening. Nothing at all is happening in this town. So we pass out. I come to the next morning, and the only thing I can say is when I woke up, I felt like I was home. And I'm not sure what even that means, but that's like the phrase that came to my brain. And so we went for a ride around this little town, and it was cool. There was like, it's right on the Chesapeake Bay, and there was like all these little art galleries at the time. There's a lot of antique shops. There's a lot of artists around. They were building a coffee shop. And I was like, this place is kind of cool, And so this guy, Steve was his name. He, I guess it still is his name. He's not dead, I don't think. He knew all these like really cool people. And so it was fun. They were all older, but it was a good time. I really liked them. And so I decided I was going to move here. So I went back to New York. Left, literally, my boyfriend's name was John, like left him a Dear John note while he was at work, packed up all my shit, and moved to Rock Hall, Maryland. And so got a job at that coffee shop that they were building. And I was feeling a little better. I still couldn't stop drinking, but I was feeling a little better. But you know how this story goes. Wherever you go, there you are. And I took myself with me. And he wasn't what he was cracked up to be, even though I'd known him for a long time, and so things got a little crazy. And he's a Gemini. He had bipolar. He's a very light-skinned black guy with green eyes. And I just say that because you'll know why. And so we tried to do this thing. And he also knew, in addition to these really cool people, he knew a bunch of people that only came out after dark and were sitting around our dining room table really late at night. And so I would like, be passed out, come downstairs and like, hungover or needing another drink. And there was like 10 people around this really big table passing around what appeared to be a glass tube. And so I was like, is that crack? Because I had never seen crack before. And they were like, yes, or whatever they said. They probably didn't even answer. They're like, and I was like, oh, I want to try it. Let me try it. And so they did not want to give it to me. And I tried it. And I'm thank God, I don't know, crack had the opposite effect on me. It made me fall asleep. And so I'm glad about that. But it did not make these people fall asleep. It made them stare at the next person coming around. It made them like not talk. And I would be like, half drunk and be like, why are you guys talking? Like, I was like, the most annoying person to be around a bunch of people smoking crack is somebody who's drunk, because they're like pain in the ass. And I would be like, they did the whole, like, they were patting the floor, they're looking on the floor for the shit. Like, and we had a cat. So like, it was fucking cat litter. Like, I know they were smoking cat litter. And I would be like, it's cat litter. Like, who drops their shit? Nobody drops that much crack all over the floor. They act like there was just exploding everywhere. It's fucking cat litter. So they didn't think I was charming or amusing at all. And nor did he. And so what ended up happening was, like, money would be missing, of course, from my room and from my supply that I had for work. They would give me the cash bag sometimes at the end of the day if I had to open the next day, and that money was missing. I mean, it was a shit show. So we ended up, I still ended up staying with this person for a little while longer, and I was just confused. I was like, whatever. I didn't understand it. But so one day we were talking, and he suddenly started having a problem with the amount of stuff I drank. And so in my house, there was a big garbage bag filled. Why do we hide our empty bottles? Like, why? Why is that? I had empty bottles hidden all over. Full bottles, sure. Like, hide one in the bathroom. So when you go in the bathroom, you could have one. I mean, I used to do that. I used to do that at parties. I would have like a drink in every room, so I could always have a little whatever. I had one in the garage. I had one in the bathroom. I had one in my bedroom. Like, I always had a cocktail everywhere, or a beer, or whatever the fuck it was. But like, why the empties? Throw those shits out. So I had a bunch of empties, and he found them, and they were wine bottles, and they were all in a big, he collected them all and put them in this big trash bag. And we got to arguing, and he took the trash bag and he swung it at me like full force, and he hit me in the arm with it, like the whole side of my body. And I was like, it fucked me up. And it hurt, and I was bruised, and I was confused as shit because that had never happened to me before. I mean, I got into fights with my other boyfriend in New York, but those were just like screaming and yelling, and I would throw plates and shit. I don't know, I was a maniac. We had a fireplace in our apartment in New York. I like throwing plates against it because they like exploded, and it was interesting. But so he hits me with these bottles, and the next thing you know, I'm like on the ground, and I'm like, what the fuck just happened? So I'm confused. And he did that thing like they do on like an after school special. Like, if y'all are older, you might understand what I'm talking about. But if not, there were like these like shows on after school before, there was regular TV shows about all this stuff. And there was like, so-and-so's parents were getting divorced, and it was about that, and this one was like so-and-so's boyfriend like hit them, it was a little story about that. And that's how it was, because in that show, what they said was like, the person will like apologize and say it'll never happen again. And then, he bought her a present. And so that's what happened. And he bought me a present. And what he bought me was a puppy. And so here I am. I mean, I love dogs, but I was like, the last thing I needed at this point was a puppy. Like, who the fuck? I can barely take care of myself. I'm living with this crazy person. Like, now I have a puppy. We went to this place to pick her out because this dog had puppies, and that she was the only female one. And I was like, that's what I want, is this one. And so I, after about, I think she was young when I first saw her, but on around Valentine's Day of 2007, I got my sushi girl, and I named her Sushi because this guy was the first person I ever had sushi with. And so but now I had this dog I had to take care of, and so things were getting a little dicey with him. It was very bad. And we moved, and he did not take his medicine, and he continued to smoke crack, and he continued to get more and more off the rails. And so one day I was at work, and we only had one car, and he kept calling me. And at the beginning of the conversation, in the beginning of the day, his phone call was like, "I'm so glad you moved here. Like, this is gonna be great," And by the end of the day, he was saying, "You're a fucking bitch. You're such a whore. I know you're sleeping with everybody. You're a fucking slut. You're a whore." Like, disgusting, like calling me at work. So of course I'm in a my heart is beating fast right now just saying that. It was like I was in a complete panic mode. So I get in the car to go home, and this was like the first time anything, I just started praying. I just said out loud the whole ride home, "God help me, God please help me, God help me, God help me, God help me, God help me," for 7 miles. I said it out loud. And when I got home, the shit hit the fan, and he was like a raving maniac. He wanted to take the dog and go somewhere, and I wouldn't let him. And he left and came back. And in the meantime, of course, I drank a whole bottle of wine, and we ended up getting into another physical fight. And this time he grabbed my arms and he held onto them, and he put his head back and he spit in my face. That was it. I lost my shit. I was like a raving maniac. Like, all I know is I was like a ball of kicking and scratching and punching and lunacy. And I called a friend of mine, and I packed a bag of bullshit. I packed the worst shit to leave. But I packed up all my dog stuff and I left. And I didn't go back. And I didn't plan to go back. I didn't want to go back. I know people go back, but we weren't even that ingrained. And I was just like, I'm done with this. And these people, I went and filed a temporary order of protection. 7 days, they gave it to me. 7 days later, I got a permanent one. These people that I had met at the coffee shop, this is like where my life starts turning around. This is where it gives me goosebumps, because these people that I barely knew came to me. They were an older couple, and they said, "We want you to stay here. We think you're a great person. We know you're struggling. We want you to come and live with us. We have space for you, and you can bring your dog, and you could talk if you want to talk about it, or you don't have to, but just know that you'll be safe with us." And so for some reason I said yes. And so I moved in with them, and I didn't stop drinking, but my life got a little better. And the guy, Steve, kept contacting me, kept breaking the restraining order, of course, and he would email me weird shit, and he would tell me I could come pick up my stuff. And I brought some people with me, and I did, but he had it all outside, and he had poured like beer and bullshit all over like all of my shit. He dropped off bags of my clothes to where I work. And when I opened up the bags of clothes, there were like t-shirts were just like one arm cut off or shredded up. My shoes were all cut up. When I left, I took the dumbest shit, but I didn't take things like my driver's license or, my passport. Like, so he had all of that. He had all my kitchen stuff. He had a yard sale and he sold it. And I was pissed, but it's like, whatever, I have my life. So anyway, he kept doing this. And at a certain point, this girl came, and she came to my job, and she told me, she said, "Steve has a gun, but it's not real. And I just want you to know that. But he told me that he's going to tie you up and burn you." And I was like, this motherfucker ain't going to tie me up and burn me. I was like, you need to get away from him, because he's a crazy person. He's going to take all your money, and you're going to be fucked in the end. But thanks for the warning, whatever. So I had called the police every time he contacted me. I called the police and told them this, and they were much more concerned about this than I was. I was just like, fuck him. He's not going to. Anyway, next day, I'm walking. I have a bag with me. I have money in the bag, cash, and I have the restraining order. And I'm walking, and I see him out of the corner of my eye. and he's coming across this parking lot and across this front lawn of this like small town bank we have. And I just was like, he looked so, I don't even know what he looked like. Like I said, he was light skinned black guy with green eyes. He looked silver, like his skin was silver and his eyes were like the wildest looking eyes I've ever seen in my life. And he grabbed, and he was like, I knew he was coming for me. And so I ran into the middle of the road and I tried to get a car to stop. And like, cause I knew he was gonna like, I don't know, I just knew it was coming. Nobody was stopping. So finally he grabs me and he like spun me around, and he had in his hand one of those like meat tenderizers that you would like pound chicken cutlets with. I'm Italian, so, you know, I think chicken cutlets. And excuse me, my lips are dry. This is the exciting part of the story. I make you wait. So my first thought was, fuck, that is mine, you know, because I left my shit at his house. And I was like, this motherfucker, like, that is mine. And then I realized, oh my God, he's going to hit me with this fucking thing. So he swung it and he hit me with it in the head. And I was like, shit, you know, and I went down and I was in like crash position. And all I kept thinking was like, you got this, Amy. Like the cops are going to come. You got this. Like you could hang on. You got this. So I'm like, all right. So he hit me a couple more times in the head with that thing. And I was like, this motherfucker. Like, and I didn't say a word. Did not say a word. I just was like, you got this. Like just pep talking myself, you know? So then he's like, then he pulls out a gun. And I was like, not real. Gun's not real. So gun's not real. He's trying to get me to say all this shit. And I'm not paying him any mind. I just was like holding my head. He's pulling my hair or whatever. Next thing you know, these two boys come running across the road and like tackle the gun out of his hand and like go running off. And I was like, cool, thanks. You know? And so then all of a sudden I'm down on the ground and I felt wet. And then I smelled gasoline and I was like, oh my God, this motherfucker is going to kill me. And so that's when I kind of panicked. Like, that's when I thought like, oh my God, I don't know if he could hold on to me, you know? And I was like, I don't want to die. Like, I don't want to die here like this with him. Like, I don't want to die. And, I screamed, he's going to kill me. And by that time, all these people had gathered around, you know, and I screamed, he's going to kill me. And he turned me around and he looked me right in the face and he said, we're going out together. And I was like, I don't want to die with him. I want to die with this fucking guy. And so I guess he didn't have matches. What a fucking asshole. And so he then like put me in some kind of chokehold. And I was like, oh, what the fuck are the cops? You know, like the cops are everywhere when you don't want them around, and then you really need them and they're nowhere. And so I'm just waiting and waiting, and finally the cops came and they pepper sprayed him, and I went running across the street, and this lady was there, this angel was there with like water, and she was like rinsing me off because I was covered in gasoline and blood. And the ambulance came and ripped off all my clothes because this gas was burning me, and the doors are closed in the ambulance. And I saw a friend of mine and I made sure he went to go walk sushi because I was worried about her. And then my thought as like the really closed, I was like, oh, fuck that. The liquor store is going to be closed when I get out of the hospital. Like, what am I going to do? And so if I didn't think I was like an alcoholic or up to that point, I mean, that was like the point. I mean, that was my thought. I was bleeding from the head, was covered in gas and almost been lit on fire. And that was my worry. Thankfully, they gave me Vicodin in the hospital. So I chewed up all of those and it was all good. They stapled my head. I had 12 staples. And they sent me home. And I like lost it after that. I lost my shit. I couldn't work. I got fired. I had another job. I worked as a bartender. Genius, right? When you're broke and you're an alcoholic, get a job as a bartender. Perfect. I got fired. I got fired from all of them. And I went to work. I went to work in a blackout. So this is what happened at the end. I went to that second job as a bartender on must have been June 30th, 2007. I don't remember any of it. I mean, like I hear stories about people in a blackout. They like go to Paris or they wake up here, they wake up there, somewhere nice. I fucking went to work because I'm a goodie. I'm a goodie girl. So I go to work. I don't remember anything. The one kid I used to know would like be like, Amy, you want me to tell you what happened that night? all the time, this kid Bergen would say that to me, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to know. But unfortunately and very sadly, he died of an overdose a few years ago. And so the story of what happened that night is gone forever. And I don't know. But all I know is the next day when I came to work, these two guys that I barely knew that owned the place told me that I had a problem and that I should get some help. And for some reason, that's when I heard them. I heard them. And I was like, you're right. And so I did the only thing I knew how to do, and that was to go to the liquor store and buy a bottle of vodka. But this time I really was going to do it. And so the next day I called this lady who's like a victim advocate. She helped me get into like an intake assessment, and the woman there told me not to stop drinking because she's like, the level of alcohol that's in your body is ridiculous. And if you stop, like, you're going to have a seizure and you could die from that. And so I was like, okay. And so I don't know why I did. I don't know what happened, but I did. And so I went on July 12th, 2007, I went into treatment, and I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know that people went there for any other reason than to get sober. What a dumbass I was. I mean, I know so much more now. Like, I didn't know people drank fucking mouthwash to get drunk, but I didn't know any of that. I didn't know people went there for any other reason than to just get sober. And I was literally at the end of what I could do. I mean, I had $60 in my pocket. I didn't have any job. I was 300 miles from my family. I had this dog. I lived with these people. I mean, I was like, I had to be done. And I wanted to be done. I was done. And, I went in and they told me that if I wanted it, they would help me. And so I believed them. I believed from that point on, like, people that talked about any kind of recovery, like, I believed what they were saying. And so I did. I went in. I couldn't understand why people were like arguing about lining up to go to fucking dinner. Like, we're going to dinner. You're already in rehab. Like, why are you trying to be a badass and fight the power? Like, just shut up and line up and go to fucking dinner. So it just was so annoying to me. But I started feeling better. They put me on some kind of medicine to detox me. I slept for like 4 days, and I woke up and I was like, okay. And like, as soon as the alcohol was out of my system, I'm knocking on wood right now, I didn't really have the desire to drink like that. Like, I know people who white knuckles and fight every single day. And I'm so impressed with people. And I'm so grateful that I didn't have to experience that, because I right away, it was like I was meant to not have that shit in my body, And I did what they told me. I went to meetings. When I got out, it was scary. I was scared. It was 28 days. I was like, felt like I was raw. I felt like my skin had been rubbed off. Like, I just felt like everything was so raw. But I did what they told me. I went to meetings. I listened to people. I listened to people in those meetings, and took me a while to find somebody that I thought was going to be my sponsor. And I finally did ask her, and she said, yeah. And she's a cool lady, Judy. We went through the steps. We did one a month. And so within the first year, I had done it. And I've done all those steps, and for the first time. And so I also started talking at that rehab, and talking in AA meetings. And so all that time, I also had to go to court for this, incident. And so what ended up happening was he, tried a million ways to say it was a racial issue. He tried a million ways to slander me and say this, that, and the other. But what really ended up happening was, on the day before my first anniversary, we went to sentencing, and he pleaded guilty, I guess, whatever he pled guilty to, I forget. But he got sentenced to 20 years, and then he got 10 years suspended, and he served about 7, I think. And then the next day I celebrated 1 year of sobriety. I can't believe that first year, like, I did all that, because that was a lot. And it's some scary stuff when you get a phone call from an institution that says the prisoner that's a part of your case has been released, or has been moved, or has been whatever. I mean, I was like, this fucking guy knew where I lived. He knew where my parents lived. Like, he knew everything. So anyway, my life got better. My life got better, and I got so much better. I still had my dog, and I got married, and that didn't really work. Got divorced, and I got out of jail. And at that time, I thought I was fine. I thought I was totally fine. Like, I'm going to be fine. This is fine. Everything's fine. But I wasn't fine. And I went and got EMDR therapy because I couldn't stop thinking about what he would do. And it was, I'm sure a lot of you know that feeling. And this lady, she was a miracle worker, and I had that EMDR, and she helped me, and it was gone. Like, those thoughts were gone. When I think about him now, like, I have no reaction. He lives somewhere in Maryland too, because he's not supposed to leave, I guess, as part of whatever his agreement is after you go to jail. Also, part of what he was doing, when he was terrorizing me before he attacked me, he would call my creditors and give them my phone number. He called, there was a warrant for my arrest for those days, those 4 days, that fucker. And he called the police in New York City, the detectives, and told them where I was, and they were calling me. It was a whole shit show. So my first year, not only was I dealing with that, I was dealing with things like trying to get my finances in order. The worst, I had judgments against me for all sorts of money, but what I did? I went to, I agreed to terms with these companies, and I actually paid them each month a certain amount, whether it was tiny amount. I agreed to $25. I paid one company $25 for 6 years. And finally they were like, that's enough. I still owed them $2,000. And they were like, you know what? You paid us on time. You held up your end of the agreement. You're good. It's amazing the things that happened when I became an adult. And that's when I became an adult. I was 36 years old when I became an adult. I had my license. The New York thing. I had to go before a judge for there was a warrant for my arrest. So I took a bus because I didn't have a car. I had to get a ride to Dover, Delaware, took a bus to New York City, met the detective in front of the courthouse. He handcuffed me, brought me in. I had to sit there. I was 3 months sober. Sat down hours, waited for this judge. And finally I got up, told the judge, I went to rehab, I'm an alcoholic, blah, blah, blah. Totally told him all the truth. And the judge was tapped his little gavel, and he was like, Miss Hoppler, you don't owe the state of New York anything. You keep doing what you're doing. And I was like, what? Okay. I was willing to clean the fucking parks some more. Shit. I could have got those parks real clean at that point. But that's the kind of stuff that happened. And an aunt of mine, talk about God shots, Todd shots, whatever kind of shots you want to call them. An aunt of mine gave me $1,000, and she told me to use it to get my life back in order. So I had this money, and I had an expired, suspended New Jersey license. And so I had to figure out why it was suspended. And I found out it was a ticket that I had gotten years before. And I went to go, and then I could pay that, get it unsuspended, and then, get a new license in Maryland. And so I went to find out about this ticket, blah, blah, blah. It was a bunch of red tape. It took a while. I finally found out, went there with my sister, went to the police station. They give me the ticket, and the fine was $997. And I had $1,000. I paid it. And it was shit like that. When that happens, is you're on the right fucking path. And so I just kept looking for that. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other and doing the right things and trying my hardest. And I don't know, things just kept getting better. I found this new guy, and it turns out his grandfather is the guy. The place I went to rehab is called the Whitsitt Center, and my husband's grandfather was A.F. Whitsitt. I didn't know that. I found that out on my first date, and I was like, God shot. Fuck, this is right, And he knows all about me and he loves me anyway, you know, and I made a list of things that I wanted in a partner and I stuck to it. You know, I held myself accountable for all the stuff. Like, it was like kind of fun to grow up, you know, like it's a lot of responsibility, but it's like, it's kind of okay. It's kind of cool to be able to like process and learn and grow and all of that shit, you know, and you know, and learn about how to have a relationship with other people and human beings. And, you know, my family is all wonderful and back and all of that. Like, it's just amazing. You know, there's a line in the book too that says like our problem is the complete and total inability to form a true partnership with another human being. That's powerful shit, you know. I like to think my dog is the one who really helped me. Like, she allowed me to form a partnership with her, and she showed me how to be a human being. And she taught me that, you know, she taught me how to put something in front of myself. And I had to take care of her regardless, you know, and so it was me and her, and I had to make sure she was okay. And she taught me everything. And man, she died last year and it sucks, but there's her beautiful portrait. And you know what? I have a really fucking good life. I was walking a couple years ago and just listening to podcasts, and I like This American Life periodically. I would listen to it, and I seriously completely randomly listened to This American Life. Like, it wasn't in my regular rotation. Every once in a while, every 6 months, I would just hit go, you know? And I hit go, and they started talking about Dave and Chris. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, first of all, what a fucking story. And second of all, I started listening to these guys, and I was like, I know these fucking guys. Like, they are my guys. Like, I feel like I could be in the room with them. When they laugh, I fucking laugh. Like, those, God, fucking loved it. Like, right off the bat, I was like, sold. No way. Like, I knew what happened, and I listened anyway. And I mean, that shit broke my heart. Like, broke my heart when Chris died. Like, I get so upset. Like, when, but man, I just connected. And then you people show up, and I was like, this place is fucking great. And amazing. I was in Boston a couple of months, like last month. And I posted it on the feed. I was celebrating my 14-year anniversary, and I went to a meeting, and these fuckers in Boston like gave me a card. They gave me a chip. They like wanted me to speak because they didn't have a speaker. I know that fucking routine, but it was amazing. I was like, holy shit, you know, but everywhere I looked, I was like, I could see Chris here, you know, like I could see him here. We went to the church. I was like, I just want to see the church where his funeral was. I'm a crazy fan person. Like, it's almost stalkerish, but you guys probably understand. Because it wasn't far from where we were staying. And I don't know. I just felt him. And my husband's so awesome. Like, he's not an alcoholic. And he was like, the church was all locked, and he's like trying to knock on doors. I'm like, stop, like, it's okay. Like, we don't have to go in, but he's so down with like being supportive with everything. You know, he's just like, these are your people. We got to find it. You know, and he was just so cute about it. And I saw Chris everywhere in Boston, and it was amazing. It was really cool to be there. Cause when Dave talks about New York, like, I feel like I know New York, you know? And so right away, I love that story about him sneaking into the garden. I fucking die. And that one about him tripping at the Dead show, because I've done that, like, not even gone into the show because it was too much. But yeah, I don't know. I'm babbling now, but thank you guys so much. And thank you for like letting me be a part of this whole thing. Thanks.
I wanna be good so bad. I wanna be so good, so bad, so bad. I wanna be good so bad. But bad desire's all I've ever had. I wanna take a ride up in the sky. Watch the aeroplanes just pass me by. I wanna see a Lear jet line or take a dive, just to show all of these people what it means to be alive. And I wanna be good so bad. I wanna be so good, so bad, so bad. I wanna be good so bad. My bad desire's all I've ever had. My shadow's getting smaller and smaller, and it's high noon where I stand. My shadow's getting smaller and smaller, and it's high noon where I stand. I wonder would they pay me any mind if I leave this busted city far behind. And I'll take the high road, however far it winds, 'cause peace and love are very, very, very hard to find. And I wanna be good so bad. I wanna be so good, so bad, so bad. Wanna be good so bad. A bad desire's all I've ever had.